Hello everyone, my name is Neeraj Attri and I welcome all of you into this second episode of the series on Islam and Muhammad. Today we are going to discuss about the pre-Islamic society, and to understand it I am going to start my today's story from an ancestor of Muhammad called Qusay. Now this Qusay was a very illustrious ancestor of Muhammad who came in and around Mecca and settled there with his family, took control of Kaaba, and also took upon himself the duty of feeding and supplying water to pilgrims who would come for pilgrimage to the temple, which was Kaaba. Now why I'm starting almost 200 years before Muhammad started claiming himself to be prophet of the Quranic God Allah is that there is a very lofty claim which the theologians of Islam make. They claim that when Islam rose as a religion in pre-Islamic Arabia, the Arabian society, the pre-Islamic Arabian society was a very regressive kind of society in which women were not respected. There was no plurality, no pluralism, and there was no inclusiveness, and the people of Arabia were very bigoted in nature. Now bear in mind, I am not going to consider the story that Mecca was not actually prevalent at that time and it was actually Petra where all this took place. I am going to stick to the traditional claim of the theologians of Islam. So, in 400 AD, this particular guy comes named Qusay. He takes control of the place in and around Kaaba, and he takes it upon himself to feed the pilgrims who are coming over there and supplying them water. Now, this was considered to be a very sacred duty, as we can understand that in a desert, supplying water to pilgrims will be considered a very pious job. This Qusay had three sons, and their names were Abd Manaf, Abdul Dar, and Abdul Uzza. Now notice that all the three names have a prefix Abd. In Arabic language, Abd means a slave or a servant, and the second half of the name is a deity to whom that person is devoted. So for example, if somebody's name is Abdul Uzza, it means that this particular guy considers himself to be servant of the deity Uzza. Now these three names themselves are an indicator that the society was very pluralistic. Even the ancestors of Muhammad were polytheistic in nature. They used to have a very broad outlook regarding the nature of God, and they considered that different gods and goddesses are manifestation of the same supreme being or God or whatever we may call it. That bursts one of the major myths that the pre-Islamic Arabian society was regressive in nature. Out of all these three sons, Abd Manaf is important for us because it is in his lineage that Muhammad is going to take birth. As was prevalent in those times, people used to have very generous number of offsprings. Similarly, Abd Manaf had also a very large number of sons. Out of those, the four which are important for our story, I am going to mention all four of them. They were Nawfal, Abd Shams, Muttalib, and Hashim. Now Abd Shams is important because his offspring is Umayyah, who later on is going to give birth to the Umayyad Caliphate or Umayyad dynasty, which is going to rule different parts of the Islamic world in the coming centuries. Apart from that, we have Nawfal, Muttalib, and Hashim. Out of these, Hashim is going to produce the lineage in which Muhammad is going to take birth. So let us move on to Hashim. Hashim was born in about 464 AD. All these references I am taking from the biography of Muhammad written by William Muir, who has been considered a very high level scholar, and his scholarship has never been questioned. So when Hashim took birth in 464, he started growing up. He was a very enterprising fellow, and on a business trip he goes to Medina. Medina in those days was known as Yasrib. Medina is a much later name which was given to that city. Earlier it was called Yasrib. So Hashim goes to Yasrib for a business trip. There he notices in the marketplace that there is a very attractive lady. He later on finds out that her name is Salma. He gets attracted towards her and starts inquiring about this lady. So he finds out that this lady has already been divorced and is a very independent minded woman. She has decided that either she is not going to get married, and if she is going to get married, it will be on her own terms. That is, she will decide where she is going to live, she will decide whether she is going to carry on her business or not, and if there has to be a divorce, the right of divorce will be vested in her, not in her husband. This is again an indication that pre-Islamic Arabia had a very broad outlook, a very broad mindset as far as women and women rights were concerned. So now, since Hashim is attracted towards her, a proposal is sent and she comes to know about the noble lineage of Hashim. Both of them get married, and according to the traditions, she migrates with Hashim to Mecca and lives with him there for some period of time, after which she returns to Medina to continue her business. By this time, she is pregnant and she gives birth to a son in Medina. On the other hand, Hashim goes for some business towards north in Syria or Gaza, and there he contacts some disease and dies on the way. Now this fatherless son keeps on growing up with his mother. When the lad becomes about 13-14 years of age, then his paternal relatives, which include his uncles Mutallib, Naufal, Abd Shams and other uncles, they decide to bring this boy to Makkah. For this job, Mutallib is sent and he goes to Medina and brings the young man with him. Then a very interesting episode happens. When he reaches the outskirts of Mecca, some young boys are playing there. They notice that Mutallib is coming with a young lad, and they think, according to the present socio-cultural milieu, they assume that he is bringing a new slave for himself, and they start teasing this young man as Abdul Mutallib, which means servant of Mutallib. So they keep on saying Abdul Mutallib, Abdul Mutallib. As a result, this name stuck with this young boy, although he was not slave of Mutallib, but this name stuck, and he for entire lifetime was referred to as Abdul Mutallib by this name itself. When he had been living in Mecca for a few years, then one of his uncles, Naufal, thinks that he is a young boy who will not be able to resist much. So what Naufal does is forcibly takes possession of the property of this young boy, Abdul Mutallib. Initially, Abdul Mutallib, obviously he gets distraught and requests his uncles to get his property restored back to himself, but nobody helps him. As a last resort, he sends a message to his maternal relatives living in Medina or Yasrib that this has happened with me, kindly come and support me. When this message reaches over there, immediately a party of 70 people proceed towards Mecca. They are fully armed. The moment they reach Mecca, they find that Naufal was sitting in the courtyard of Kaaba. They take out their swords and at the point of sword forcibly get that property vacated from Naufal and hand it over to the young Abdul Mutallib. Now this is the end of the problems for Abdul Mutallib. Now he has got his property and he starts growing up, and during the course of time gets married and has a very large number of progeny. That's it for today. We'll continue from here in the next lecture. Thanks for listening. Thank you very much.